Well, today was a fun day. It is Friday. I'm drinking my first batch of homemade kombucha and it is delicious. I'm so stoked about this. I made peach. So next batch will be pineapple. I'm going to give all my flavors a shot. Also, today was the Candace Owens, Andrew Wilson debate. And I'm just going to say this. I know everything's a show right now. Candace is controlled opposition. She's got her script to play. She likes to push the Catholicism thing and play into it. I don't know how I feel about the Charlie Kirk stuff. Like, if he's dead, I don't like anybody being murdered, obviously. But there's too much crazy stuff going on. Anyone who watched Erica Kirk after her husband got shot or had some explosion happen under the shirt, whatever it is, anyone who saw her reaction knows that that's just like psychopath behavior. None of it makes sense. So I cannot stand Andrew Wilson. I can't stand him. I know he says he's a Christian. I do not claim him. I do not claim him as one of my own. Okay? That is not how Christians are to be. Hating on women, cussing. Sorry, this is my dog finger rope. He's a horse's ass, in my opinion. No, I don't want you drinking this. Yeah, he's just a jerk. I can't stand him. So I was very curious when I was getting my tire repaired at the shop today. I listened to the entire debate, and I had to stop several times because I get a visceral reaction listening to Andrew. The word salad, the narcissism, it's like talking to my family and my ex at the same time. Of just like, you don't make any sense, do you think? But anyway, I digress. You can't take it too seriously, but that's my form of entertainment. And when you are not emotionally attached to it, then I say, okay. Anyway. Subject at hand. Amongst my many areas of study, I looked into graphology a long time ago. Now, for those of you who do not know, graphology is the study of handwriting. Now, I like to get to know other people, but just like in many other areas of interest, I researched this and got a bunch of books on it and learned how to do this fluently when I was trying to figure myself out. Because I couldn't trust anybody in my life to give me constructive criticism, because the past proved that every type of criticism was meant to tear me down or was just made up, I had to learn how to be my own objective bystander and call myself out and try to understand myself, my flaws, my strengths, my weaknesses. And I figured when it came to graphology, that would be kind of hard to fake. So before I even opened the textbooks and instructional books on graphology, I wrote my name down in cursive, fast, slow, and printed, which I will do again here. But before I dive in, I wanted to let you know why graphology is looked at as an art form rather than a science. Well, it used to be looked at as a science. So was face reading. And I also do that because you can tell a lot of different health ailments, personality issues, emotionality. You can figure a lot of things out by the structure of the face, muscles, fascia, wrinkles, patterns. It's not that hard. It's common sense stuff. You can also learn a lot from the graphology. They used to teach this, I believe, in the 1800s until the elites, the royals, the Richie Richardsons. I don't know if their name was Richardson. But the rich people didn't want poor people having any edge. They didn't want to give any poor people the upper hand because they figured poor people are going to use this to manipulate rich people. And they wanted to maintain that hierarchy. So they stopped teaching the face reading and they stopped teaching graphology. And now both of those things are looked at as a faux science, even though I think that the outcomes that are derived from these two artistic practices are actually more accurate than what we have in the modern medical industry today. So I booted up on the computer so I don't talk too much. And before I read straight from the computer, I'm going to go ahead and just sign my first name a couple of times. I did a quick signature, a slow signature, and a printed signature. And this is what we have. Fast, slow, and printed. Now, as I go through these bullet points, you will see what all of this means. Okay, graphology is the art and science of analyzing handwriting to understand a person's personality, emotional state, and behavioral patterns. It works on the principle that handwriting reflects the subconscious mind as thoughts and emotions are expressed through the way we write. That's true. Graphology can be applied to handwriting samples, signatures, and other written text to gain insight into both private and public aspects of personality. Again, true. Graphologists examine several core features of handwriting to interpret personality traits: letter size, slant, pressure, spacing, margin and baselines, loops and curves, and zones. So let's dive in. Letter size. A lot of this you're going to realize is common sense if you just break it down to the bare bones. Letter size. Large letters suggest sociability and competence. Small letters indicate focus and meticulousness. And average letters reflect adaptability. Again, that is a very general, broad statement. You have to take a lot of things into consideration. You can't just look at the letter size and think you have somebody all figured out, because there are some variables. Large letters do suggest confidence. If you think about it, narcissists, people that are ego-driven, they are larger than life. They want all attention on them. So it makes sense that their signatures would be large and in charge. Small letters says, yes, it indicates focus and meticulousness. However, I have come to know that the people that have the smallest signatures and the smallest handwriting, they actually are the most timid and the most unsure of themselves. Average letters reflect adaptability. I believe that is very true as well. They can be chameleon-like, different situations. If they're nervous, they might write small. If they're very confident, they might write big. But we also have to take in consideration that sometimes it's a speed issue. Some people might write very, very small if they're taking notes in class. They might write very big if they're just trying to bullet point what they want to write in their next email. So you have to remember and take that into consideration as well. Slant is where I think it's very interesting. A right slant shows openness and sociability. Left slant indicates reservation or independence. And vertical writing reflects logic and steadiness. Okay, I do agree that right slant shows openness and sociability, but you cannot mistake this for somebody being an extrovert. Sometimes it's the presentation of a person, what they want to show publicly. Again, we can see this with the right and left eye, depending on the brain hemisphere. When we get into face reading, you have one eye that shows you what you are on the inside, and one eye that shows you what you would like to present. So it can be determined the same way in handwriting. You can see with my signature, when I'm not thinking about it, it is sloppy and up to the right with a heavy right slant. It's also a heavy right slant, but I stay pretty much in line. And then with the printing, I'm all capital letters. So, and less of a right slant. So depending on the professionality that I want, or the professionalism that I want to display, the time constraints, that will also dictate the slant. But overall, my slant is to the right, which means I am more open, I am more creative, I like to flow, and I like to look forward. I don't like to look behind. Left slant, though it does say that it's about reservation independence, we can determine that to be someone that is always looking in the past. Someone that is not forward thinking, someone who is not excited for the future, somebody who wants to figure out the past before they can move on. They don't have it all figured out yet. The vertical writing and steadiness, I disagree with this. The people that I find that write straight in line usually don't have very intricate thought processes. I guess it's what the young folk would call NPCs. The very strict up and down, there's no creativity, they're not looking forward, nor are they looking behind. It doesn't necessarily mean mindfulness and steadiness. Sometimes it just means that they don't have any creativity and they don't think beyond their nose. So whatever they were however they were taught to write since grade school is how they just continued to write. Pressure. Okay. Heavy pressure implies strong emotions and energy, while light pressure suggests sensitivity and empathy. I do disagree with this. I know that if you're upset and you're writing a note to somebody, you might be going definitely hard pressure on the paper, the pen, the ink on the paper. But I tend to be very dense in my writing, in my mediation, when I'm taking notes, when I hear a plaintiff or a defendant telling me their side of the story so I can get all the details correct. So I look at that as steadiness, as being diligent, being precise. I don't really believe that that's all due to strong emotions. Same thing with the light pressure, sensitivity and empathy. I don't see that. Sensitivity, I think, would be the harder pressure. So you can think what you want on that one. I tend not to agree with that. I think there are too many other circumstances that come into play when it comes to the pressure. Spacing. This is interesting. The distance between words and letters can indicate social tendencies, comfort with personal space, and organizational habits. Though I find this to be true, I like to go the personality route. And people who have words that run into one another, so it's like one giant word for the entire sentence, usually these are the people that don't think rules apply to them, which would go hand in hand with boundary crossing. If they don't have boundaries in their writing, they usually don't adhere to other people's boundaries in life. They think that they can do what they want to do, just like they can write however they want to write, and it's somebody else's problem if they can't understand it. Whereas people who have bigger spaces in between words, usually these are the people where they are used to having their boundaries crossed. So they have a hard time standing up for themselves in life. If they can't do it in real life, they do it on paper. Very isolated words, big amounts of space. Leave me alone. Margins and baselines. Consistent margins and straight baselines suggest discipline and stability, while irregularities may indicate flexibility or emotional variability. This can be true, but let's look at it a different way. Consistent margins when you are writing could mean you have perfectionism tendencies. It could mean that you went to school for writing. It could be that's one of your pet peeves. It could be that you love the written language, you love the written words, so you respect it. Or it could mean that you just like to do things one way, the way you were taught, you don't have any creativity. So I really don't see how margins and baselines really make a humongous difference. The people that don't use margins and baselines at all tend to think, again, the rules don't apply to them, and they don't put much effort into anything and expect everybody to just give them a clap and a pat on the back for them putting in any type of effort, whether it's good or not. Loops and curves. This is another good one. Oh, it's so tasty. Refreshing. Okay, loops and curves. Rounded letters often reflect creativity and openness, whereas sharp angles may indicate rationality or assertiveness. As you can see in mine, I have a healthy mix of both. I have some very sharp lines, but I also have some nice curvature. What I really like to look at are the loops. When you have a loop in cursive, even in printing, a D, I'll just go ahead and do a D, and I'll do a D. Okay, you got a closed D, and then you got a looped D. In graphology, a non-looped D would be more closed off, more private, more reserved. A looped D would be more casual, more open, more creative, more social. That's technically what it would mean. Now, I think can be true and can be false at the same time. Some people have developed a different type of penmanship through the years, and that is completely normal. As you mature, your handwriting and your penmanship will morph with you, because it really does go into the firing of the neurons in the brain with the creative flow, with the intellectual prowess, how you learn, how do you adapt. It's neuroplasticity. So if you have somebody, okay, I'll just go right into it. I was going to wait and finish it up with this, but if you have somebody like I have seen, which prompted this video, I came across paperwork from a a man in his 50s, and I go to shred documents and I looked at how he filled out the forms, and it looked like a toddler wrote it, printed it. Some letters were uppercase, some were lowercase, some were big, some were little. It looked like a 3-year-old printed on these papers, yet he's in his 50s. Now, why would that happen? He's educated, he's in business, but emotionally, he didn't mature past being a toddler. And now that I look back and I was like, oh my gosh, yes. He acted like a toddler. He liked to have things done his way. He was not emotionally regulated. His temper was insane. He had a hot head. If things weren't done his way, he would pout, he would yell, he would scream like a little toddler. Very narcissistic, a little bit covert when he had to be, so manipulative again, which played right into what I read today, when he had little teeny letters with other big letters. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how did I not see it? You see a lot of people that are labeled psychopaths that have that type of writing. People that are sociopaths. And people who are brain damaged, which, if you ask me, I think psychopaths and sociopaths are either brain damaged or spiritually sick. One or the other. But that's where the loops and curves come in. The big curves don't necessarily mean that you're creative. It could just mean that you haven't been traumatized. Closed loops could mean that you're very standoffish. You don't want to let anybody in. So I find that to be very telling. Now, the combination of sharp angles, yes, indicate assertiveness, sharp, to the point. I think a healthy mix of the two is the best type of person to be in any type of relationship with. When you look at a signature and you watch how they write, if they have a couple of sharp edges and a couple of rounded out, or more open loops, they're going to be fine. Now there are, I should say, open loops. This is what an open loop is. We'll do an A. That is an open looped A. There's a closed loop. Open loop A's can be construed as somebody that never finishes what they start. They don't have complete thoughts, so they will never have any finality in their life. Or other people have interpreted that to be is that they're just very open. They're very free. I see it as people don't finish what they start. That's what I've seen when I measure it against other people that I know that have been clients. The closed loops are people that like finality, like to get things done. They're very decisive. They're very goal-oriented and not quite perfectionists, but they like completion for the purpose of completion. They're not procrastinators. Okay, zones is the last one. Handwriting is divided into upper, middle, and lower zones corresponding to the intellectual, social, and physical, emotional aspects of personality. Yeah, I can see that to be true. You want to see when it rides high, when it rides middle, when it rides low. You can interpret that anytime in many different ways if you honestly want to get down to it. But I think that the loops and curves, the spacing, and the slants are actually the most telling. So we'll just read on. Graphology requires spontaneous, unlined writing on plain paper, preferably using the writer's usual pen. Analysts focus on essential strokes, the structural skeleton of letters, accessory strokes, the decorative elements, to interpret the personality traits. Graphology is used in psychology, personal selection, education, criminology, and personal development. That's why I studied it, personal development. It helps identify emotional tendencies, creativity, social behavior, and even stress levels. While not a hard science since the 1800s, it has been applied by recruiters, investigators, and psychologists to gain insights into the subconscious mind. Okay, so that's just my little snippet on graphology. I think it's super interesting, and I would love if people started getting into the old sciences that were done away with in the 20th century. I would like very much if people got back to it, because I think that's where our communication failures lie, is that we've gotten rid of how to read a face, how to read microaggressions without taking offense at everything, how to recognize breathing patterns, penmanship, gait while walking, posture. All of these things can really help you to understand yourself and others. Now, sadly, a lot of people out there will learn these things in order to manipulate others, which is exactly why they did away with these studies back in the 1800s. They didn't want to risk getting manipulated out of wealth. But if this is used to help yourself and to connect with others, I think it can be a wonderful tool. It's definitely a good tool in business. You want to know who you're getting in bed with when it comes to contracts and things of that nature. And sometimes you just get a glimpse at their doodles or at their notes. You can glean a little insight to see if is this somebody that I want to yoke myself with professionally. So on that note, have a great day and to be continued. Bye.